bad times or things like that. But in essence, there's a lot that's really a lot that happens in these times that sort of provokes some very thought provoking, some very necessary conversations to be had, some reevaluation of ideas, and such as, for example, say you're broke, then all of a sudden you start thinking about, hey, maybe I didn't need to spend money on that after all. Maybe I should have cut that out of my budget, or things like that. Just reevaluate your lifestyle, and that's the kind of thing that we're kind of into today. And does the unified live chat work on my end? I'm trying this thing. Whatever. We should be live. Hello.
We are live. We are live. Yes.
Hello.
Welcome to Live Free and Rant 10, the lesser evils. I'm Chris Maidment, and I'm joined by Joel Valenzuela.
And in case you were asking, no, we did not intentionally wear the same shirt color. Mine is about how the AK-47 is the only thing that communism got right. And Chris has...
I will reveal mine a little bit later.
Yes, but we did not mean to match. But I guess we both are wearing the color of rage because rage is on the topic right now. This is Live Free and Rant, by the way. Now we hit the double digits as far as podcast numbers. Might as well be fitting that we actually go off on this one. For a rant show, we've been like pretty measured most of the time. Pretty much like, well, yeah, but this and that, a lot of that kind of stuff. I'm not predicting that right now because one of us is
I'm
upset.
fired up. I am fired up. On Friday, so this is 8 weeks now, right? We've been told we're going to slow the spread for 8 weeks. The original goal was to flatten the curve. They said flatten the curve, flatten the curve, flatten the curve. We don't want healthcare to be overrun.
Yes.
And pretty much everybody understood that, and we all kind of said, okay, well, we'll go along. We won't go out to businesses, we won't go to restaurants, we'll take precautions because we didn't really know all that much about the virus, right?
Of course.
So we kind of just went along with it. And it was supposed to be, at first, the president said 14 days to slow the spread, bring that hospital capacity down so that, we're not using these field hospitals. We're not using these Navy ships that are being hauled into New York City. And then it transitioned from 14 days to 30 days. And we all kind of went, okay, yeah, sure, I guess so. We don't really know all that much about the virus still. The numbers are increasing. We don't know where this is going to go. Massachusetts was spiking. New York was spiking. A couple other areas around the country were spiking. So we played along. And then it feels almost like they went to the football field, ripped the goalposts out of the ground, and stored them in an underground government bunker somewhere, and we don't even know what their goals are anymore. So it went from flatten the curve so we don't overrun healthcare to stay inside forever until there's a vaccine or you die. And it's maddening, right?
Yeah.
And so what's the goal? What is the goal of the stay-at-home orders now? Is it just to prevent people from being infected with the virus that's going to infect pretty much everybody anyways? Original projections were 60 to 80% of the population are going to be exposed to this virus. Now we know, unfortunately, very elderly people or people with comorbidities. So if you have a vascular disease or diabetes, some heart disease, it's probably going to affect you a lot worse. And we've been learning a lot more about the virus over the past 8 weeks. So we know who it affects. We know where they are. They're all in these long-term care. There's a lot of people in long-term care facilities that are very affected by this virus. 75% of the deaths in the state of New Hampshire are in these long-term care facilities, and they're tragic. These lives are getting taken years early. Maybe they have longer than that, and it's cutting their life short. Whatever the case may be, it's tragic for them. It's tragic for their families. My thoughts and respects and prayers go out to those families that have lost a loved one. But we have ground almost 25% of our state's economy to a halt, and we didn't even protect the people that are being affected by the virus. There's clusters in these long-term care facilities all over the state. That's where people are dying. And we can't stop the spread in those facilities, but we think we can stop the spread in the general public. That's just insane, right?
Yeah, and of course, I've been quiet for a little while, partially to make sure I'm checking up on all the live chat stuff in case someone got going, but mostly just to let you get all that out of the way. That's an epic rant, and the one way I could sort of summarize all that really quick, and of course I'll be flashing this a whole bunch, is in this meme. It's a silly meme. It's an older meme, sir, but it checks out. It's basically the Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars saying, "Good, good, let the anarchy flow through you."
Yes, and it was actually, I'm glad you put that up, because it reminds me of another scene from Star Wars where they say, "I've altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further." Right? I wish I should send you that one. It doesn't really fit with the way we have the screen set up.
Yeah, but it's still.
But they altered the deal.
It's the same thing, and it's something like this that's it's very educational towards this kind of what is government, how does it work, all this kind of stuff. And like maybe I'm too cerebral sometimes, but whenever there's something crazy like this that goes on, I always like take a step back and I'm like, what can we learn from this? How can we move ahead? But do you remember a time when your life, because we all grow up, we all start out as babies, and when we get big, do you remember a time in your life when you kind of figured out that your parents are full of shit?
Unfortunately, I was very young when I figured that out. My parents divorced when I was very young, and my mother had some personal issues that she has always struggled with. Yeah, it's probably right around the time when you figure out that the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus don't exist.
It's one of those same types of things, because one thing that's clear from this ramble of a timeline you could put out about virus problems, the people in charge, right, the experts, the people who are like there to tell us and lead us in these dark times, supposedly, they just say, oh, well, we got to do this, we got to do that, it's for your own safety. And then they kind of give like reasoning, like, well, okay, well, we got to wreck the economy and all that kind of stuff in order to keep people safe long enough so that we don't have an absolute meltdown and collapse and all this. And they give reasonings and then therefore goalposts and things like that. And then stuff starts to be changed. And then it's just like, you start to think when you're living under this, you're like, yeah, I understand. I shouldn't be going to like a Walmart right now, right? It's a little crazy. Things are a little crazy right now. But then it's like, okay, well, hold on. I can't go out for a drink, but I'm getting corralled into a packed Walmart with a whole bunch of other, heathens. And I'm just sitting there with all these monsters. And I'm like, how is this safe? How is this safe and that isn't? And then you're going out and you see people complying in weird ways, like wearing masks while driving in their own car is kind of a weird thing. You see all that kind of stuff. You start to think again. And then they're like, all right, well, the hospitals are at like small capacity. They're not overrun by a long shot. In fact, they're laying people off for elective surgeries or quote elective. And that's a whole other topic. But there's all this stuff going on. And then it's like, okay, well, the curve seems to be flattened. It seems to be going down, and hospitals never reached anywhere near full capacity, which is the first reasoning. And now it's like, all right, well, now let's do a scheduled opening, right? And then, well, I don't know, but this and that. And then not restaurants at half capacity, but only outdoor seating and only at this point. And then you can't get a haircut and like all this other weird stuff. And then after a while, if you're paying attention, you just start to come to the conclusion that, hey, is it just me? Or are these people kind of making it up as they go along? Like,
well, that's what it seems like, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't sit on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
But you can stand in line at BJ's, Costco, Walmart, Market Basket. You can you can walk on the beach, you can swim on the beach, but you can't sit on the beach. You can't sit on a chair on the beach. And we have video and pictures of across the country, these COVID police, the stay-at-home police, as
the Karens,
Governor Chris Sununu called them. At one of his press conferences, he said, we don't need to have the stay-at-home police coming out to, bother you. So just kind of do what I say. So last Friday, this is where my tipping point was originally. He had one of his, 3 p.m. press conferences. He has one going on right now, actually.
Yeah, he's going to mention you
And
by name and ask for your vote again. Just kidding. Well, let's keep going.
I would.
Let's keep
Yeah.
going.
Well, so one of the reporters there, Michael Graham, works for NH Journal Inside Sources. He asked what the justification was for continuing the lockdown. And the governor said, well, instead of me telling you what my justification for continuing the lockdown is, I would challenge you to give me a justification for undoing the stay-at-home orders. Right? So it's like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Government, and this is kind of where we're headed with this, right? Is what is the proper role of government and who do they work for? And I have given him a lot of leeway and slack over the past 8 weeks. And we've talked about it on this show. So you can go back and watch what I said.
Talk smack about you for that, but I didn't. I know where it's coming from, but at this point, I would probably start, if people were still like defending everything this guy did, I would probably start being like, okay, you're not paying attention. Sorry.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So it's kind of like, if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention, right? And I've given him a lot of slack. I knew where he was coming from. I thought he was, trying to do the best. I gave him a lot of leeway. But when you come out and you say to a reporter, oh, you have to justify why I should undo my stay-at-home orders instead of me justifying why I'm keeping them in place, that he lost me there, right? And then he went on to say it was probably going to be a couple more months of regulations and stuff like this. So, like you said, we have restaurants that can open outdoor dining only starting next Monday. I've heard reports that some restaurants are already doing that, and I'm proud of them. I'm going to see if I can track them down and support them, because at some point, and I think, was it last week's episode was civil disobedience?
Yeah,
is that what we talked about last week?
I love the way this theme is like advancing. I love just the way it's advancing. We're going in a great direction here. I'm very excited.
We're trending in the right direction, Joel. Yes. And I think, we have 172,000 people on the unemployment rolls right now. Yeah, in a state where we don't even have 800,000 in the labor force. So that's almost 25% of the people in this state are unemployed.
Yeah, and that's like not going to be some kind of an issue. Well, here we kind of get to the thrust of this whole thing quickly, which is these sorts of lockdown type things. I like the way the wave has worked. And this is one of those things where as soon as this stuff happened, first off, so many people I know were just morons about, like, they cannot handle a little drama in their life. And by drama, I mean just like ups and downs. It's like the kinds of people to take a picture and post it all over Facebook for like a 80 comment thread. If there's a small scratch on their car that they discover in the Walmart parking lot, they're like, oh, I'm sickened right now. I can't breathe. Look at what someone did to my shitty old like 96 Altima. Like, people that they just cannot handle little things like that. And so as soon as you have these weak, fragile people, as soon as this is my little bit of a jerk rant here, but as soon as you get the little disturbance of, hey, some people are getting sick, some people might even die, all of a sudden they just lose it and just say like, I don't know what's going on, I'm so scared, and then they go and hide in their houses. They look outside, the sun's shining, they're like, oh, and then some guy starts jogging down the street, arrest that man, you shouldn't be doing that. They start losing it on, they just cannot handle that whole situation. And that's how we get to this whole, like, we need answers, we need lockdown kind of stuff. And then you get governments which are more than eager to just say, yeah, well, we'll come in and help you. And then they come in, they don't know what they're doing. And then now we just end up this situation. So during that whole thing, of course, they were more than eager to give government emergency powers, which doesn't mean government exercised emergency powers they already had. It means that because of these circumstances, they said, we're going to do these things. And the people let them, right? And let's not get it twisted. They didn't just comply. The people let them because they're not supposed to be able to do this kind of stuff. And the people are like, yeah, all right, I agree. This dangerous times. We'll do that. And instantly, all my other pro-liberty friend people were saying to me stuff like, oh my gosh, this is the end. Everything's going to be terrible. Government's going to take an immense amount of power, and they're going to keep it, and it's going to be awful. This is the end of liberty. I'm so worried about the future. And I'm like, yeah, I see what you're saying, but, just wait a little bit. Let's see how this plays out. I've been around the block a few times. Let's see what happens. And now you have people in California being full-on anarchists, practicing civil disobedience and stuff in the People's Republic of California. And this is just the start. You have riots. You have was it, I forget which state, but there was, no, in Germany as well. I read some headline that riot police were clashing with anti-lockdown protesters, and now supposedly they're going to be opening up some stuff pretty soon. And just the people have had enough. They want to be able to work. They want to be able to do whatever. They're done. And so they're rising up again. Watch the Free Rant rise up. One of our previous episodes. So I always foresee this kind of thing coming. The pendulum swing back. And now
I hope it keeps swinging, because we need. So after, I guess the first instance that I saw in my life of the government growing their emergency powers, quote unquote, was probably right after, what was it? The Oklahoma City bombing with that whack job out there. And he blew up the government building in Oklahoma City, I think it was, with fertilizer and a rented box truck.
Yeah, hence the name.
Right, and then people grew their. Yeah, and they grew some emergency powers there. They started banning certain things federally and yada, yada, yada. And then, in Columbine, there was a shooting in Columbine 1999, and the government immediately leapt to, we need to ban semi-automatic rifles. And they had this quote unquote assault weapons ban that lasted for a little while. And then, after 9/11, now we got the TSA, and you get strip search at the airport, and they x-ray all your stuff because some, well, as Ilhan Omar says, some people did something, right? But 3,000 people lost their lives on 9/11, and now so we have this overreaching TSA, and we're now getting real ID and all of this stuff. And then, every time there's a tragedy, the government uses it to grow their power, because they know the people at the time, with their emotion, will support it, right? Because so when this virus started, people were afraid. People were afraid of the virus because we didn't know anything about it, and there were people dying, right? So people will willingly comply with government power when they're afraid, because nobody wants to die. Some people want to die, but that's a different story for a different day. Suicide. Mostly people do not want to die. Mostly people want to continue living their lives. They want to, spend time with their families. They have reasons to live. Jobs, families, hobbies, activities, and so when you're afraid for your life, you will go along with certain things if you feel like they're going to protect you. So people at the beginning of this, and I was one of them. I went along with it. I said, okay, the stay-at-home order. I guess I was upset when it happened.
Of course.
Because I thought New Hampshire, we're supposed to be the live free or die state, and South Dakota didn't issue any stay-at-home orders. Some businesses voluntarily closed. A lot of them, I presume, did. If you own a business, you want to do the responsible thing and protect your customers, protect your employees. And if you have a public that isn't going out and engaging with your business, then it kind of makes sense to just close temporarily on a voluntary basis. Where my problem comes is where the government comes in and says, you must close, certain industries. And we talked about Walmart's okay. You can go to Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's. Apparently those are the safest buildings on the planet, right?
Yeah, they're a scientifically
I've been in
whatever. It's pretty funny to think about. They're one of the grimiest, dirtiest spots I've ever been in the state, but okay.
Right. So, obviously, grocery stores, you got to leave grocery stores open because people need to eat. And if people don't eat, then you're going to see a resurrection real fast, right? insurrection, whatever the right word is.
Yeah, zombie apocalypse.
So
Strange.
with Brexit, we saw with Brexit, right? In 2016, nobody predicted Brexit. They didn't think it was going to happen. The people of Britain wanted sovereign autonomy over their country again because they were tired of being ruled by these big government, European Union, we'll call them commies because
Yeah,
whatever.
sure, it works.
So more and more and more and more, we're going to see, I hope we're going to see, people advocating for personal responsibility, people advocating for liberty, people advocating for a smaller government. I hope that's the case. I hope that's where this trends. I hope that, and this is where the title of the article is Lesser Evil. So now we're trending in the right direction there.
Yeah.
In November,
there will be reckoning.
We can elect people. There should be. Hopefully, by then, people have seen that we were lied to, we were gaslit, the goalposts keep moving, and nobody is telling us the truth, aside from very few, like Kristi Noem in South Dakota, right? She's one of my new favorite politicians.
Of course.
Dan Patrick in Texas, one of my new favorite politicians. Thomas Massey is always one of my favorite politicians. The politicians that have the courage to stand up and tell you the truth, or to have the back of the people they represent. And I'm not talking about protecting them from the virus. I'm talking about protecting them from the government.
Because
the government exists. Right. That's the real virus. The government exists to protect individual liberties and rights, God-given rights or natural rights, whatever you want to call them. If you don't believe in God, that's fine.
Yes, the government
but we have
exists to protect
rights.
Just think about this. The government exists to protect you from itself.
Well, that's the proper role of the government. That's not what it actually exists for today, right?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, we have so many. I mean, after the Great Depression, we got Social Security, we got Medicare, we got Medicaid, we got all these social safety nets that they, quote unquote, that they call them, right? And then, in 2010, we got, or 2009 or 2010, we got Obamacare. So the government is trending in this direction of we have to protect the masses, right? But they're doing it at the expense of individual liberties. They're doing it at the expense of they're completely lost their way on what the proper role of government is, which is to protect the rights of the smallest minority, which is the individual, and to protect those God-given natural rights that we all have. And they're trending in this direction that just to protect for the quote unquote greater good, right?
Yeah, and it's been very fun to see this whole thing unravel because in this whole, we haven't had a panic like this before. We've had viruses all over the place. We had what people might call pandemics. But as far as the actual, the actual destruction and the body count and all that kind of stuff, yeah. From what I've seen, this is nothing too crazy. And there's no disrespect to people who've actually been hurt by this or have lost loved ones because of this. However, this is the first time we've had this, oh my gosh, everyone's scared of this thing. And then where we had government just be like, what are we going to do? We're just going to shut down the world. And it's such a drastic, and not just drastic kind of a thing. It's just such a dumb idea. Let's be honest. Just tell people they can't go out and eat anymore, and then it's well, how will people feed themselves? Guess we'll give them money, right? Okay, where's that coming from? Make some money. I don't know. Figure it out, Johnson. And then it's well, people need to buy a place to go buy food. Well, grocery stores, right? All right, but you realize just packing them into a box where they can spread this thing. Well, I don't know, make them wear masks or something, and then cut down traffic by making one-way things so not bumping into each other, I guess. See what happens. So there's all this harebrained dumb stuff to try to combat this thing. And then, oh yeah, let's lock everyone down in nursing homes and then lock the sick with the not sick and just fish in a barrel, just murder them all, which is really sad and terrible. Like, okay, now we
Oh, it's
have,
tragic what's happening in the nursing homes.
yeah,
It's absolutely tragic what's happening in the nursing homes, and that could have been prevented, right?
yes, that could have been.
They
I don't even think it could have been prevented so much as it could have been not perpetuated, if you know what I mean. It could have not been forced on the nursing homes. It didn't do anything. Now we're starting to see that Sweden's baller move of just, we'll deal with it. We'll see what happens. Seems to be kind of where we're trending. Where it seems like they're just like, we're not going to do anything. We'll handle it. We'll deal with it. And then everyone's like, all Sweden's suicide, all this kind of stuff. And then, they seem to be doing all right. And so that's, Georgia opened back up and they seem to be doing all right. Like all this kind of stuff. And now we have people who, the little people, right? I don't mean that in a, I don't mean that in the way that maybe our buddy Greg might think, but no, the little guy, the guy who has like the single, proprietorship, entrepreneur, whatever, that are just running out of money and they're running out of hope and they're getting scared and desperate. And finally, they're just like, you know what? I have no choice left. I'm going to reopen my business. I know there will people that will go there. I don't care if I get arrested. What do I have to lose? I don't have anything to lose. My back's against the wall. I'm going to go do it. Sometimes they've been arrested. Sometimes they haven't. Some people, like that lady in Texas we talked about, got arrested and then got let out. And then Ted Cruz went and got a haircut there, the Zodiac killer. I'm saying Ted Cruz, Uncle Ted.
Yeah. So, well, she got arrested for violating the stay-at-home order in Texas, right? And so she opened 1 week, 7 days before the government gave her permission to reopen, right? The governor had already said hair salons can reopen next Friday, and she just went ahead and opened. She said, well, if it's safe next Friday, that must mean it's safe today. And then the Gestapo came and arrested her, and they brought her to trial. They brought her to court, right? And the judge said, you can apologize for being selfish, or you can go to jail for 7 days, right? Because that's when you're allowed to reopen. And she said, no, I'm not going to apologize to you for trying to feed my family and for giving my stylists a way to feed their family. I'm not going to do it. So she got sentenced. She didn't get sentenced for necessarily violating the stay-at-home order. She got sentenced for
contempt.
What do they call it? Contempt of court.
Which is
so this
just
judge
like,
said,
you got a lousy attitude, miss. That's literally what it is. Can you believe you can go to jail for that stuff in this country? I mean, other countries.
I mean, if you want to talk about a violation of the Fifth Amendment, right, with due process of law, like, okay, so the judge can just.
And
I mean,
the
I get
violation of the First Amendment, let's say.
Yeah, and then right after that, the governor and the attorney general said, "Oh, whoops, we didn't actually want people to go to jail. We just wanted them to obey us, right?
Yeah.
We didn't want to have to punish people for not listening. We just wanted them to listen." Which, I don't know if you don't have kids, but
no,
it doesn't work, right? I tell my kid not to do something, not to do something, not to do something, not to do something. He still does it, and then eventually you have to punish them, or they're gonna do it. Especially if they know they can get away with it. So the judge was, he's thinking, okay, I'll just enforce this, and then people won't violate the stay-at-home order anymore, and I have all this power, and I'm going to use it, and yes, we have to keep all the people safe, and blah, 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 improper role of government. So the governor and the attorney general came out and said, well, actually, we didn't want people to go to jail for this, so we're going to, go back and change the order retroactively.
Yeah, which is
fantastic.
Then
right after that, which is fantastic. And then before they did that, the lieutenant governor, Dan Patrick, gave $7,000 to this woman's GoFundMe so that she could pay her fine, right? Now, this woman's GoFundMe reached like $500,000 in a week.
Yeah.
Including the lieutenant governor paying the fine for her. And he even offered to serve the sentence for her. He said, put me on house arrest. I'll serve her sentence.
Which, it's funny because the lieutenant governor, he works for, is the reason she's in jail. She went to jail, right?
Yes.
And I'm not going to be like super beaten up on this guy for, like, compared to the rest of the crowd, the rest of his field, his peers, as it were. But literally, it's like, the lieutenant governor who works for the office of the governor, that guy and his group of people are the one who jailed her, and he's like, no, do me instead, because they just realized, oh, this looks so bad. And by the way, side note about this lady making a big old fat bag, Like, good for her. Because guess what? It takes stones, metaphorical stones, whatever you want to call them, to do a move like that, to put it all out on the line, become become a symbol, like Batman would say. It takes a lot of courage to do that, a lot of risk, and just like gambling, like put all your chips in. Sometimes you win big, and I think she should absolutely win big. Like I said, I think she should keep all of that money. She earned it. She's a hero. And so,
yeah, I mean, maybe what she's probably going to do is, because she seems to be like a stand-up person, she's probably going to help her stylists who have been out of work for 8 weeks and need to feed their kids, right?
That's what I would
So
do.
I'm glad that all of these people have given her money, because she became a national folk hero in the course of like 24 hours. And thank heavens for the social media. That's how things go now. She just wanted her employees to be able to feed their kids, so she opened in defiance of the government. And just like that restaurant in Maine there, in Bethel, Sunday River Brewing Company, he opened in defiance of Janet Mills. They stripped away his health license. They stripped away his liquor license, which is an automatic thing when you lose your health license. And he said, you know what? I'm still opening. I don't have a health license. I don't have a license to be open, but I'm going to do it anyways because I am done with this.
And guess
people
what?
want, and the line was like hundreds of people long. And he's out on the front porch of the restaurant yelling at him, don't let the media see you closer than 6 feet. Don't let the media see you closer than 6 feet. Social distance, social distance, social distance. So he's enforcing these social distancing rules because he just wants to put food on the table.
And guess
literally
what?
And figuratively.
This is making me so happy. Let me show you a real picture of me inside right now. Oh, there it is again. There it is again. Because in all this thing, this is a game of chicken. It's like the government says, do this, and then you're like, okay, I guess I'll do it. And the answer is like, or what? Is like, well, you'll, fines, and we take your license, and maybe you go to jail. But it's like, it's a lot of it's sort of vague. And it's just, there's that Mexican standoff, where they're just like, all right, no one move, who wants to make the first move? And just like one of those dumb guy confrontations at a bar after way too many beers. About like, whoa, no, take a swing. No, you swing first. No, you swing first. They're just playing chicken with each other. Who's gonna swing first? And so when you make people desperate, like I can't feed myself, then they swing first, and then it's like, oh, okay, well I guess I got like first off, it's like usually what happens. Most of these people who have reopened their businesses or done whatever have not gotten arrested. Almost all of them. There's just been a few cases. Again, I don't have the data in front of me, but let's be honest, most of them, including the very public ones, have just gone about their business. And then now the rest of the world is just like, wait, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't realize you could just like, I thought like your restaurant would just like burst into flames if you didn't have a liquor license and open. Like, you just open? Like, I didn't know that. I don't have to listen to government. I can just do what I want, like the Ron Swanson order. I can do, I have my Ron Swanson permit if I do what I want. And then, of course, the government now at the point is in the position of, like, the joke's up. They're gone. They're going to be gone, right? There's going to be no more government unless they put down their foot and enforce what little bit of power they pretend they have. And so they do it. And guess what? People don't like little old ladies being hauled off to prison for styling hair. They don't like their favorite pub owner just being destitute and ruined because he just wants to give everyone exactly what they want, which is a very safe thing to do. They don't want, like,
right.
They see this and they're like, oh no, government's the bad guys and they're after us and everything we love. And then at that...
Right, so politics is... Go ahead, sorry.
At that point, with the game of chicken, then that's how you affect real change to a certain extent. This is the beauty of civil disobedience. Again, the subject of last podcast, but hey, it's always a good topic. Is if they keep cracking down, then the people are just going to rise up and just like drag them out of the Capitol, throw them to the river or something like that. It's going to happen. So the only way, and if they just let things happen, then they lose all their authority anyway. It's a lose-lose. So the only thing they can do is do some blustery, bluffy thing and just be like, well, we've decided to rescind and whatever. And then they push back the order and they basically give the people what they wanted, but make it seem like it was their idea to begin with. and they're that like to just basically
Right.
force the Mexican standoff.
It's definition gaslighting. It's
Yeah.
definition politics is the art of public perception, right? Or it's the art of the possible, right?
Yeah.
So if you have, like another place in Texas, this bar opened, and they sent.
Let me take a quick pause because we haven't said it
MRAP.
yet. We haven't said it yet. Subscribe, donate on Patreon, donate crypto, keep us doing what we're doing. Someone already give me on float, give me $2 worth of Bitcoin. Thanks, King. You're the best. All right, let's keep going. Some great guy in Texas, some restaurant in Texas.
Yeah. So did I break up there?
A little bit. I just sort of
Okay.
interrupted you though.
Politics is the art of public perception and what is possible.
Mm-hmm.
So this bar in Texas opened, and they sent a SWAT team with an MRAP, which is a military.
Yeah.
Used to be like mine resistant or something.
Yeah, it's basically like a Bearcat, like one of those armored
if
assault
you're-
vehicles.
Yeah. So the problem is the general, people like us look at that and we just get all riled up in arms, and we say, are you kidding me? You're sending weapons of war, literal weapons of war, not like an AR-15. You're sending people with literal weapons of war to shut down a bar trying to earn a living. And a lot of people look at that and they go, well, that is just way too much government, right? But then on the other hand, you have those Karens that go, oh, well, they should just listen to the government, and everybody should listen to the government, and whatever the government says is good, and the government's always right, and we have to obey, and we blah, 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 right? They want dictators to control their life.
Yeah, there's not that
My
many
life.
of them, really. There's way too many of them.
There's
not that many.
There's way too many of them. They're probably an outspoken minority, right?
Of course.
These Karens on social media. Most people just want to live their life and be left. Stuff like that. It kind of turns the tide against the government. And who are you going to blame? You're going to blame the person that implemented the policy to begin with.
Of course. So we were talking about this gaslighting game of chicken, because all you got to do, if someone makes the first move, then the other person obviously has to escalate, and then they look bad. And so the only way to win is reestablish the game of chicken by moving it back. Be like, no, okay, now you can do what you want. Because if you let people open and go to their businesses and all that kind of stuff in a way that sounds like you didn't lose the conflict, right? But then in order to force that conflict again, what someone would have to do is then start being like, hey, you know what? I'm legally allowed to open as a restaurant and serve stuff now, but I'm tired of my liquor license, so I'm just gonna not renew my liquor license, and then come get me. Now you're pushing it, right? I think that's a great morally defensible stand, but now the average person is not going to be on your side. They're just like, let this guy do business. But like now you're starting to claw back that stuff, then they win. So that's where it goes.
Exactly.
It gets pushed back to that point, and then, but that's okay. I'm okay with that, because guess what? We get to go back out. We get to reopen our businesses, whatever. If we play that game of chicken and let them have that moral victory, whatever that they feel, because we got our way. We got our freedom back in this case. Now, that's how you work with civil disobedience, which is a very tough kind of way of affecting change. It's a very ballsy. It's high risk. I would not recommend it in most circumstances. That's how it works. Now, here's another way. Voting. And I know for all my anarchist buddies, voting violent doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. It kind of does work. And here we're talking about
It kind of works.
The
Kinda
lesser of two evils. Which the whole idea is, okay, well, you have your guy you want. The other people have their guy they want. The only one that everyone can agree on is this terrible compromised person on this side and this terrible compromised person on this side. You got to vote for one of the two because you'll get the worst one, And that's almost like a threat. It's like, oh, you think this is bad? Wait until your father comes home, kind of thing. It's like one of those kinds of terrible things. And so
Yeah. So that's the argument being used now, right? They're saying, well, if you think this is bad, just imagine what life would be like under Governor Volinsky. Or just imagine what life would be like under Governor Feltus. They want an income tax, and they want this, and they want gun control, and they want all the other things,
Yes,
right?
and honestly, so for those who don't know what it was like in New Hampshire, and of course we're talking about national type stuff, but in a very local context, the current governor of New Hampshire, Chris Sununu, little old Frankenstein-looking guy, he won a narrow primary election. And we've talked about this before, but why not rehash it, right? He won a very narrow,
Yeah.
like, is in, say you go out to the pub, see that guy was running. Frank Edelblue.
There's my reveal.
Who's
My reveal. I'm wearing my
Yes.
Frank Edelblue t-shirt today.
He was the he is the education commissioner now, but he was the candidate for governor. He was the principled guy. He was the guy who just like liberty or death type dude, and the kind of a no name really. And then the dynasty guy, the Jeb Bush, as it were, New Hampshire's own Jeb Bush type. You know,
He's got a little bit more
Jebbins.
energy than Jeb.
Yeah,
I
he's a
mean,
little
the
higher
guy
energy.
he's jovial, he's charismatic. You know, you'd get a beer with him.
Yes.
So he's not so much Jeb. He's much more George Bush than Jeb Bush.
Yes, his family included senators and governors in the past, and basically, yeah, he's like the sort of the shoe-in, and you know, by all accounts, a decent dude. You know, like nothing, you know, popular. Everyone knows him, that kind of stuff, and it's very local politics kind of state. But say you go out to a bar, you got to a pub, and in the outdoor seating area, however many people are out there, it's a busy day. That's the voting margin that Sununu won by. Just a collection of people, like a group of people. You can just,
yeah.
It was very slim, and who knows if recounts could have pushed it in the other direction. Who knows if
It was close enough. It was close enough that a recount could have pushed it. Right? We'll never know because the one Frank Edelblue didn't request one.
Mm-hmm.
He was instead given the role of commissioner of education.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of how politics works. Like, hey, if you kind of just go along with it, we'll give you a nice cushy spot. And if you don't go along with it, we're not going to give you that spot.
Yes. And so Sununu, being not a stupid guy, I mean, well, not until recently, but like not generally a stupid guy, the populist dude realized, oh, my base wants me to fight against the growth of government. I want that. I'm supposed to be the people's hero. This is what people wanted to elect, really, and like this is the thrust of it. So, thanks to that guidance, he did a lot of good stuff over his term, and a lot of people were like, "Wow, that guy's great. He's doing a phenomenal job. I'm going to vote for him again and stuff." And always in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, "Yeah, but I don't think he believes any of this stuff. I think he just knows that's what the people kind of want, and you know, which is he's being a good." He's being a good businessman, so to speak, with his customers.
Yeah. Well, you have to represent the people that elected you, right?
Yeah.
So, because if you like, let me. I have the 2016 primary results up.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Sununu 34,194.
Mm-hmm.
Frank Edelblue 33,161, which is a difference of only 1,033. And the margin is like super small because there were 3 other candidates: Ted Gatzis, Jeannie Forrester, and some Jonathan Lavoie guy.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a 5-way primary, and he only won by 1,033. I mean, looking at the total, it looks like he got less than 33% of the vote. So it's not like a stunning, landslide. It's not like there was a mandate for what Governor Sununu actually stood for. So he had to kind of encompass that small government right that Frank Edelblue represented, like the liberty kind of aspect. So at first it started out kind of great, right? Like he signed constitutional carry. That was the first law that he signed. SB, I don't remember what number, doesn't matter. So it repealed the licensing restriction on firearms, and everything was happy in Concord, and people were happy, and we're getting more freedom. Great.
Yeah.
And then he introduces his budget,
mm-hmm.
right? So we're going back now to 2017 after he was sworn in. He introduces his budget to the legislature as is required every biennium. And it actually grew the size of government, and it grew government spending.
Yeah.
And certain representatives in the House of Representatives didn't take too kindly to that. Specifically, I'm speaking of J.R. Hull, who formed the Freedom Caucus and rallied enough Republican support to kill the governor's budget.
Mm-hmm.
And so they killed it. And then it went over. And so by constitutional mandate, spending bills have to originate in the House.
Of course.
But the House couldn't get a budget passed because there just wasn't enough votes, right? And they didn't want to shrink it enough to appease the Freedom Caucus. So what ended up happening was the Senate had to hijack another bill that had spending in it and turn it into the budget, kind of bring in the Freedom Caucus guys, and then send it back to the House, and we got our budget that way.
Mm-hmm.
Which is it's
It's funny.
So that was kind of like the first black eye that he got, right? Like his budget was killed by his own party.
Yeah.
So maybe that sent him a message too. And for the past, and since then, he's governed pretty conservatively, pretty liberty aligned, right? 57 vetoes this biennium so far. Maybe might be a couple more now. And people are like, oh yeah, he's vetoing all these bills. He vetoed an income tax. He vetoed this. He's going to veto that. Well, that's stuff you expect of a Republican governor, right? You don't expect a Republican governor to to increase minimum wage. You don't expect a Republican governor to pass gun control. You don't expect a Republican governor to do all these things that the left wants. But the vetoes are, you get what you expect, where you have a Democrat majority in the House, a Democrat majority in the Senate, a Democrat executive council. You expect him to hold the line for your party because he represents your party, and there's a platform, and there's ideals, and there's, principles. What you don't expect is when someone from your party betrays those principles. And in my opinion, that's what's happening now. Mm-hmm. Like I said, at first, we all kind of went along with it. Nobody knew anything about the virus. Everybody was, paralyzed by fear. We just I never changed anything about my life. I still went to work. I still went to the lumberyard. I still went here and there. I mean, I washed my hands a lot more often because that's the number one way to prevent a viral infection. But I was still going to Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's. I was still out and about working. I didn't really go to that many restaurants before. So we've talked about this before, right?
Yeah, of course.
So my life didn't change. I wasn't paralyzed by fear. But a lot of people were, and they all kind of went along with it. And it was just kind of what it was. Right. And we were like, okay, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, we'll muddle through this. But when you get to the point of there's, first of all, you lied to us, right? Because it wasn't about slowing the spread, obviously, or otherwise we would be all free by now because we flattened the curve. The hospitals aren't overrun. They're empty. So we did your original goal, and then you were like, nah, I'm going to rip the goalposts out, and I'm going to hide them. And I've been lying to you, and I'm going to keep lying to you, and I'm going to keep gaslighting you. And instead of me justifying why I'm doing what I'm doing, you have to justify why I should stop. And that is not the principles we expect from a governor that wears our team badge, right?
So,
he's wearing the red hat.
So now we get to that old game of chicken. The civil disobedience game of chicken also applies to the vote the bums out game of chicken. Except instead of threatening to arrest you or fine you or whatever else if you disobey, now it's threatening to subject you to a worse dictator. And at some point, it's just like, well, what'll happen? We get the worst dictator, or are you going to vote for me? And at some point, someone's got to break. And so just with civil disobedience, we're, okay, well, fine, I'll open up my business. I don't care if I get arrested. And then all of a sudden, they're like, okay, we got to acquiesce. Does voting work? Kind of. But this is the way to make voting work if you're going to make it work. And if you're not going to make it work, stay home. Sorry. Don't mess with this. It's a boring, terrible process. So the way you make it work is you don't play those games, because the lesser of two evils is still evil. The lesser of two evils means you're always losing at the negotiating table. It's all negotiation. It's all, what do I get as a citizen? What do I get from these rulers? And the answer is always get screwed, but there's always various degrees of getting screwed. And the way to negotiate down your getting screwed is not by always voting for the lesser of two evils. The game of chicken here is, vote for Sununu. He's done a lot of good things. But come on, you're shutting down, crashing the whole economy, which I would argue is more devastating than any of the good he did in his entire term combined. Is way worse
Yes,
in
I
terms of
agree.
way more
Yep.
destructive. Way like you say, oh, you cut business taxes, all these other things, the economy goes up. Yes, no, no, okay, good, but he just ruined that and then some. So the idea is, if you don't vote for him, one of these awful people will get in. It's like, well, first off, we might have to have a term under a terrible governor. We have to be ready to go to jail, right? You have to
Okay.
be.
Well, yeah, you have to be ready. If you're going to do civil disobedience, you have to be ready
Yeah.
to deal with the consequences.
Same thing
So if you open,
if you vote for the not if you don't subscribe to the lesser of two evils voting pattern. If you vote for some random other person, you have to take the risk that Sununu's going to lose and someone worse gets in place and you have to deal with them for a little while. That is a risk that you will take. But guess what? Just like going to jail for doing haircuts, there's light at the other end of that. And this is where we go of if you vote the bums out, first off, if you start freaking out enough, if you start agitating about that now, you might get what you want early and not even have to vote the bum out. Because guess what? I don't believe I separate the politician from the person who is the politician. It's not so much that I give a guy a pass for being an asshole in office in real life. It's kind of the opposite, that I don't trust anyone because they're a good person to be good as a politician, because they're not. They have pressures. It is what it is, right? So basically, I would rather I'm not blaming Sununu for all the bad stuff he did. I do kind of course, but I'm not surprised or shocked or disgusted. It's like, yeah, of course he's gonna do that. He has pressures from all these states around him. Everyone's telling him, oh, we gotta help out and do this, and all his cabinet, oh, you gotta do this, and I understand. But he's got to understand when he throw opposite pressures. Hey, guess what? The people did not exercise their negotiating chips enough. Now it's time to do that. And now basically you threaten to vote him out. And if you're not satisfied with what happens, you do vote him out. And then you get someone worse, maybe. Who cares? You deal with it for 4 years. You maybe riot against that person too. It's not like you can't do that. Not like you can't go civil disobedience and freak them all out. And then you get someone who's like, okay, just like we had like civil disobedience so hot right now, that meme last time. Once it's so hot, then you get the next time around, you get someone running for governor, like possibly Frank, but again, let's not put him up to this. Someone who's like, you know what? I saw what you lunatics did to the last two guys. I think I'm ready to play ball. And then you get freedom.
right? Well, I mean, you can look at the UK. I mean, it's right. So Brexit happened, and then whoever was the prime minister at the time resigned, and then we got another prime minister, and they didn't get the job done, and they got run out of town, and then we got another prime minister over there, and then they didn't get the job done, and they got run out of town, and now finally you get this Boris Johnson guy, who's kind of brutish like Trump, right? And he comes in and he just gets it done.
Yeah,
he gets done what the people wanted. So that's a good lesson. Like, if you're not going to do what the people want or what the people expect you to do, right? Like, I'll tell you, it's a lot more fun being mad at a Democrat governor, because you it's easy to be mad at them, right? Like Governor Whitmer in Michigan. It's real fun to be mad at her because you expect Democrats to be your government. You expect them to. So it's kind of like you get what you expect. And when you get something that you don't expect, like what I expected in New Hampshire was kind of like Kristi Noem out in South Dakota. I expected live free or die mentality. I expected personal responsibility. I expected, we're the live free or die state. So I expected kind of we would get something along those lines. Kristi Noem happened to be like the only governor in the country to do it. And she got parades thrown in her favor. Like the people that are protesting in every other state are throwing parades for her.
Do you think she's going to get reelected?
Oh, by a landslide.
Exactly. Take heed, politicians.
Right.
This is how it's done.
So like you said, it comes down like so it seems counterintuitive to vote against your own party,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if you subscribe to the party system, I don't.
I don't.
I do. I work within the party to try to
Because someone
hopefully
has
move it in
to.
the right direction because somebody has to. So I think working within the Republican Party is one of the easiest and fastest routes to get to liberty, to get to smaller government. The Republican Party was founded on the ideals of personal responsibility and smaller government. So to get back to that, I working within the party is fine. But if we have to suffer a term, 2 years of a Democrat governor, it might just be what we have to do. And that's not to say I want all Republicans to lose. I want the one, and I don't even necessarily want
that asshole
to lose. I don't necessarily want him to lose. I don't want Governor Feltus. I don't want Governor Volinsky. But I am no longer going to just vote for the lesser of two evils. If you want my vote, I want you to earn it. So I will vote for the senator in my district, probably. She seems pretty aligned with me on principle. And until she proves me wrong, she's earned my vote. I will vote for state reps in my district, which I'm one of the candidates. So, I mean, it's easy to vote for myself, but I betray myself all the time. So who really knows, right?
Depends on which you're going to get.
So basically, until you give me a reason not to vote for you, what do they say? What did Reagan used to say? Trust but verify. So I trust that these people that run on these platforms will adhere to that. And once you violate that trust, you're going to have to re-earn it. Mark Warden, Governor Hoel, Governor Hines.
Sure.
So I mean, a primary would be very interesting, right? We saw how close it was in 2016, and we have a governor now that's not, upholding to the live free or die principles. So I think a primary would be very interesting.
Yeah, let me chime in on that.
It's going to be a lot of money, a lot of time. We're kind of late, so go ahead.
If it's Ole or Hines or whoever you are, potential primary opponent to poor Chris Sununu and his weird Frankenstein head, if you're going to be a primary opponent to this guy, start finding all the businesses now that are defying the orders and start trying to support them. If anyone got fined, help raise money to cover that. Start going to them, start patronizing them, that's your groundwork. That's your seat. And people I remember that guy who was, breaking the law, like just to support my business, to support the end of this kind of stuff. This is my guy. He's not just saying, hey, I know people are pissed off at Sununu. I'm going to go run against him because I want political power. It's like, even if whether or not that's the case, you got to get in there now. You got to make sure you show that you care, even if you just care about getting elected. But the only way you can do that is by actually supporting people before you're even running. Go start doing that. Get that going. So, and of course, as we see, like the lesser of two evils, as soon as that's like the first step on the path to when you start rejecting the fact that you got to vote for some kind of jerk because someone else is going to be worse. Guess what? Don't short sell yourself. Be happy with what you got. Be happy with your life. Life doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be good.
It has to be good, right? And if you're asking me if I'd rather have my arm or my leg cut off, that's not much of a choice.
Yeah.
So, if you're, or do you want your left ear cut off, or do you want your right ear cut off?
Yeah. What if you settle for, a kind of deep and ugly scar on your arm, but you still keep your arm? Like, okay, maybe it's not perfect, but it's good. You still have both your arms. You're great. Don't settle. Just because you don't settle doesn't mean you're going to have to be like, no, I always want better. And then you end up with nothing you want. So we're brushing up towards the end of this. Oh, wait, hold on. The governor is caving to the Dems in the House and the Senate. I'm hoping he's watching Georgia and South Dakota and then freeing it up. Yeah, he's caving to the people who were not going to vote for him to begin with. Well, guess what? We're up for a good wake-up call. So, as we're coming up on the hour of this thing, I must remind everyone that, let me move back to the screen, donate, subscribe, and donate. Keep this stuff going. Chris needs something to pay for all his pending legal fees or something. No, just kidding, you don't don't have those yet, but just saying. Or maybe we need something to go make it rain to all these defiant businesses and stuff. So throw us a few coins. Now, on the way out, we are going to play a fantastic little clip, and it's under 2 minutes. It's just like last time. It's going to be wild and worth your time. If you're one of those don't tread on me crowd people, it's going to be worth your time. So watch the clip as we go out. Next week, we'll be back ranting as always about 2 or 3 p.m. Eastern time on a Monday. Let's see what kind of trouble we've gotten into by then. And see you guys later.
We will make America metal again. Thank you. God bless you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Don't tread on
Me.
Don't tread on me.
Liberty or death. What we so proudly hail.
Once you provoke her, rattling
Of her tale never begins it.
never, but once engaged,
Never surrenders. Showing the fangs of rage. Oh, no.
I said don't tread on me.
Me. So be it. Threat
No more. To secure peace is too prepared for war.
So be it.
Settle
The score.
touch me again.
For the words that you will hear
Evermore.
Hey.
Don't tread on me.
Me.